All right, let's just jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're peeling back the layers on the sheer analog brilliance behind those seemingly magical interactive toys of the 80s and 90s. If you grew up in that era, you absolutely remember the wonder of sitting on your living room floor watching a physical toy react perfectly to the cartoon playing on your TV. I mean, it felt like actual magic, right? But behind that illusion was some incredibly clever, hardwired engineering that we are going to reverse engineer together today. To kick off this journey, we really have to ask ourselves, how on earth did these toys react to a screen in real time? This was decades before modern wireless tech like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or AI even existed. Today, we're so used to our smart devices just seamlessly communicating through the air. But back then, the toy didn't inherently know what was happening on screen. It wasn't actually smart at all. So how'd they pull it off? Section 1. The magic without internet. Before we look behind the curtain, let's set the baseline for what made these toys so captivating in a pre-internet world. Looking at Teddy Ruxpin, it's honestly hard to believe he wasn't somehow actively aware of his surroundings. I mean, look at that innocent face. But beneath the fur, he was literally a marvel of hardware, reacting strictly to physical, hardwired instructions. The data telling his eyes to blink or his mouth to move wasn't cooked up by some computer brain. It was fed to him mechanically. It's just a great reminder that sometimes the absolute best illusions come from raw, mechanical ingenuity rather than digital code. Moving right along to Section 2, the secret of the VHS. Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is how the data was hidden in plain sight, right there on those chunky video cassettes you'd rent from the video store. To pull off this interaction, the engineers tapped into something called overscan. Overscan refers to the horizontal blanking interval, basically the dead zones at the extreme edges of an old-school, bulky CRT television screen. Regular TVs simply didn't display those outer edges. They were physically cut off by the plastic bezel, and the creators realized these invisible borders were the perfect hiding spot to sneakily embed extra data without ruining the cartoon. So, get this. While you were totally glued to the show, there was actually a hidden gray strip containing a rapidly moving animated barcode flashing right on the edge of the broadcast. Because of that overscan we just talked about, this flashing barcode was completely invisible to the human eye on a normal TV. But it was very much still there, riding invisibly within the raw video signal coming out of the VCR. It was literally a secret language flashing in the dark. Which brings us to Section 3, this system's brain. Since the TV itself couldn't make heads or tails of that secret barcode, the whole setup desperately needed a middleman. To make the 90s TV Teddy move and talk, your standard VCR couldn't just plug straight into the television. The signal had to be intercepted. It had to pass through an intermediate decoder, just like this TV talk box. This unassuming little plastic box with its cables was the true brains of the operation. This brilliantly illustrates the data flow. Let's break it down step by step. Step 1. The VCR shoots the raw, unedited audio and video, sneaky blinking barcode included, directly into the decoder box. Step 2. The decoder processes that image, reads the flashing barcode, and translates that visual pattern into electronic commands and secondary audio. And finally, Step 3. The decoder acts like a traffic cop. It sends a nice, clean video signal up to your TV while simultaneously firing the voice and motion commands through a cable straight to the toy. All right, Section 4, animation by electrical pulses. Now we're peeling back the final layer of the onion, the actual mechanical language happening inside the bear itself. How does an electronic command translate to a plastic jaw moving perfectly? It used a technology called pulse position modulation, or PPM. And what's wild is that this is a direct adaptation of the high-tech animatronics used in Disney theme parks. It relies on high-frequency electrical pulses. But the secret sauce isn't just the pulses themselves. It's the incredibly precise, tiny intervals of time and silence between those pulses that give millimeter-perfect commands to the servo motors. Think of the silent gaps between the electrical pulses like a musical conductor. This conductor directs an entire orchestra of data. For instance, the timing of one interval acts as channel 1, controlling the exact position of the eyes. Another interval, channel 2, commands the upper jaw, and channel 3 handles the lower jaw. By constantly tweaking those tiny micro gaps in the signal, the toy achieves that flawless magical lip sync effect that matches the voice perfectly. It's an insanely elegant analog solution. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, the bear's evolution. It's really telling to compare this complex 90s TV setup with where the animatronic bear actually started back in the 80s. We've got two completely different eras here. The 90s TV Teddy heavily relied on that VHS decoder box and the television screen. But the original 1985 Teddy Ruxpin? Totally autonomous. No TV required at all. Instead, they cleverly hid those exact same inaudible PPM pulses on a totally standard audio cassette. If you looked at the tape in his back, the left track played the story audio you could hear, and the right track was completely dedicated to sending silent electrical PPM pulses right to his internal motors. A totally self-contained show. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. And honestly, it leaves you wondering about the sheer chaos of this analog engineering. I mean, if the original Bear's motors were controlled by the right audio track of a standard cassette, what do you think happened when curious kids took out the story tape and swapped in a normal pop or rock music cassette? Well, because standard music has sound on both the left and right tracks, the Bear's internal motors would frantically try to read the drum beats and guitar riffs as animatronic commands. You'd literally end up with a Bear spasming wildly to heavy metal. How amazing is that? Keep wondering, keep exploring, and thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into 90s toy tech.